Think you ever move back to Cali?
Well, let's see what this guy has to say.
Sorry, Brandon. The podcast is over.
I'm going to be taking a step back from being on King and the Sting. And grateful to you, Brendan, man. Appreciate it. Our podcast was defrauded. We were stolen from. And this is the past couple years of my life where I chose to do certain things. And I'm like, I know this doesn't feel right, but I feel like I need to do it for money, or I feel like I need to do it for... And once I got out of some of that, everything has fallen so much more into place.
It's been a little over a year since Theo retired from The King and the Sting and left Brenda with the podcast that is now known as The Golden Hour. The last podcast of The King and the Sting with Theo was episode 193, airing November 4th, 2022. Originally, Theo said he was just taking a step back, and a lot of fans thought he would stop by from time to time. But as we now know, what Theo meant by taking a step back is like when your ex that is better than you tells you they need to take a break. It means they're never coming back, and it's because you're not good enough. From what we can now see, the majority of the views from The King and the Sting were because of Theo, as the top videos on the channel were when Theo and Brenda were doing The King and the Sting. 1 year later, and The Golden Hour is getting 10% of the views that The King and the Sting once was. At that time, a lot of people were speculating that Theo would branch off and do a podcast with another comedian. Possibly Bobby Lee, as it appeared Tiger Belly was coming to an end. However, Bobby started Bad Friends with Cheeto Santino and has turned it into a massive success. And Theo went solo, focusing his time on This Past Weekend, which continues to get big numbers and even bigger guests. So in this video, we'll take a look at the clips from when Theo left The King and the Sting, look to answer why Theo left, and how it has affected both Theo and Brenda's career trajectory.
Yeah, and then I got some sad news. I'm going to be taking a step back from being on King and the Sting. And I just want to thank you guys for just being a part of my life and letting this show be a part of your life. And, grateful to you, Brendan, man. Appreciate it. It was awesome.
Funniest guy I know.
Thanks, bro. I appreciate that, man.
Been doing what, 4 years?
I don't know. Has it been that long?
There's a bigger thing for you out there,
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it is exactly, man. I mean, it's sad, I feel sad about it, I love you guys, and just thank you so much. There'll be some times where I'll pop back in, but just I just don't want to kind of leave that in the lurch. I feel like I've left it there for a while. And anyway, thank you guys, man. I love y'all, and I love you, bro.
Love you, brother. You know that.
Gang, gang,
All
baby.
right, guys, buzz.
As you can tell from that clip, Theo was breaking up with Brenda and not vice versa. Having to tell Brenda had to be hard for Theo. He's not a bad guy, and he doesn't want to hurt anyone's feelings. And say what you will about Brenda, it still sucks seeing someone cry, even if it is a 6'4" former UFC fighter. Theo did it the best way he could though, like a band-aid, just ripped it off. Brenda had to know it was coming too. They didn't just surprise him with it live on the podcast. At the time, a lot of comedy fans were hoping for Bobby Lee and Theo to team up. We know they're good friends.
And I love Bobby, and Bobby's probably one of my 50, probably 40 favorite people. I would bet 30. 30, top 30.
Looking back now, everything happened the way it was supposed to. Theo went lone wolf, which is obviously the right move. There are only a few comedians, maybe none, that could benefit Theo. It'd only be helping the comedian Theo chose to work with. He's pulling down millions of views with every podcast. He doesn't need anyone's help. A lot of people actually thought Theo would do a podcast with Kalila. Looking back now, that would have been the worst thing Theo could have ever done.
I get a barrage of messages.
Okay. And what does barrage mean? That's French, isn't it? Barrage.
It could be. Just always messages pertaining or accusatory messages, thinking that you and I are in some sort of, that you're my side piece, that you're my second. And I don't know where that comes from, because I don't feel like we've ever talked about it on our podcast, or have we?
I have never said anything like that.
Because you've never been in the outs with me, bro.
Well.
Oh, yeah.
Give
You
me a
have.
chance.
I forgot.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
What
Theo?
were we on the outs about? No, I think after you and your girlfriend broke up, I think there was a moment where you thought I was going to try to make a move, I think. And I remember you being a little bit strange to me.
I'll tell you what. I think out of all the comments that would have made a move, that you had the best chance to get in. Maybe that's what it was.
Thank you.
I saw.
And I did not make a move.
You would never make a move.
Not a chance, brother.
But Theo moved to Tennessee, and Kalila is So, with Theo in Tennessee and Bobby in LA, it would have been more of a job to do the podcast than anything, someone having to fly in every week. We saw the same thing happen to Two Bears, One Cave, and their podcast has only went downhill since Tom moved to Austin. A lot of fans were confused as to why Theo all of a sudden left The King and the Sting, but people in the comedy world saw it coming.
Think you ever move back to Cali?
Well, let's see what this guy has to say.
Sorry, Brandon. The podcast is over. It's just gonna be some Sting, Brandon. You and Chrissy better eat some weird. Hey, what's on the menu?
Bro, he's getting freaking ridiculous over there.
This was something that was going to happen. There was no stopping it. Theo is becoming a huge star, even getting the attention of the boomers now, thanks in large part to having guests on like Tucker Carlson. Something I don't think he could have ever done had he remained tied down to Brenda. In my opinion, Theo left The King and the Sting because Brenda was a bad influence. Theo has been very open about his substance abuse issues and his problem with dialing ladies of the night when he is hopped up on nose clamps.
What's the freakiest thing you did while it came?
Oh, dude, I'll tell you some. Well, the weirdest thing is I would look for escorts on the internet, right?
Yeah, well,
and
classic Kane move there.
yeah, dude, they would come to my residence. I would be so scared and paranoid. I would take the money and hand it out the door because I didn't want to not pay for the, the
service.
They drove over,
Right?
So yeah, I would pay them, and then I would just be grateful that they weren't there.
Those are the types of shenanigans Theo no longer participates in now that he's sober. However, it doesn't take a clinical psychologist to see that Brenda is still trying to live that life. By his own admission, he still likes to get up.
So many people believed in their heart that it wasn't addictive. Yeah. They believed that they
told
needed
them
to take it. And then next thing you know, you're a zombie. Yeah. You could speak to this. It happened to you.
Yeah.
You didn't even know, right? When you were on those pills, like you had no idea you were hooked.
No. And I just got off Adderall. I got a problem.
How much, what was the dose you were taking?
Oh, he was.
You don't have to tell me.
3 30-milligram Adderalls a day for.
You take 10?
I took 3 throughout the day. Now, if I'd stand up, I'd take another.
What were you doing? How did you feel?
Like a rock star.
Did you have a lot of like false confidence?
And thanks to Mark Harley, we know that Brenda has a problem with baddies. Not to mention Brenda going into a partnership with the guy who was supposed to sell ads for several of his podcasts, which Theo later brought to light.
Our podcast was defrauded. We were stolen from. We were taken advantage of. A lot of ways to say it. The company that did it is Cast Media, and the man that did it is Colin Thompson.
It was never on time. It wasn't unusual if it was like a month late, a month and a half late, and then when it goes from, all right, a month late to 2 months late to 3 months late.
This is the kind of nonsense Theo doesn't need in his life, and you can see from the year he's been away from Brenda, he is flourishing. His mullet even looks softer. It looks like it did in the early days of the podcast when you can see the happiness of both on their faces as they just annihilate each other with roast. These were the days before Brenda put out Gringo Poppy and before the whole Tiger Belly thing, so Brenda was somewhat liked. He was making regular appearances on JRE too. He's not been there so much as of late though. It seems like Joe is even taking a step back from Brenda. While Brenda has had himself distanced from a lot of the comedy scene, he's still hanging in there, which is admirable. But Theo is rising to even bigger levels. Just take a look at the views he's getting since solely focusing on this past weekend. He has even talked about how he is happier.
Because I've had spots even in the past couple years of my life where I chose to do certain things, and I'm like, I know this doesn't feel right, but I feel like I need to do it for money, or I feel like I need to do it for... And once I got out of some of that, everything has fallen so much more into place. I've gotten my semblance of human, like I just feel like myself more again. Yeah. It's been pretty fascinating.
Good.
Theo hasn't bashed Schaub or even really mentioned why he left The King and the Sting other than a few vague reasons, but he has given true fans some hints. You just have to listen.
So what happened in the King and the Sting podcast? It's no longer?
The King and the Sting podcast. Yeah, the podcast is still going. I'm just not. I'm not doing
cool.
it.
You and Brandon are cool though, yeah.
Yeah. We just honestly, man, I didn't have enough attention really to focus.
Yeah.
Like I like my own podcast, and we have a unique kind of audience, I think.
Yeah.
And I think I wanted to be able to. I feel a lot more in touch with this now.
And we just gotta love each other.
I know it's hard though. Once you meet people, you're like,
I know.
It's hard to love Rodney. It's like her. Brenda's out here.
You're right. You're right.
It gets dicey.
If you look at Brenda, on the other hand, he's hanging in there. But ever since Theo left, it seems like the controversies have been non-stop. Mark Harley outed him. That's how we know about the baddies and the addies. IG models are outing him, even tagging his wife and posting screenshots. And now there is even a YouTube rumor that Whitney Cummings' baby's father is Brenda. I know it's a cliche, but Brenda is his own worst enemy. All he had to do was his podcast. If he had never put out a special and just focused on his podcast, and also if he never messed with Bobby Lee, then he may actually have real comedy fans. But he tries too hard and drives true comedy fans and Theo's away. The average person that doesn't spend a lot of time watching comedy probably likes Brenda. If you look at him from a macro point of view, it looks like he's still doing really well. Look how many podcasts he has, and even though the numbers aren't big, he's still making a living. He's had a lot of help from some very good friends though. If he would have just eased into it instead of going all in with the merch and the specials and the podcast and the baddies and addies, he should have just focused on making a good product. Brenda started around 2015 when the market for YouTube content, especially content like his, was few and far in between. He was a big fish in a small pond, but now that the market is becoming so saturated and there are creators out there that are much better than him, it's showing and his overall product is hurting. Who knows how many of those views are actually real? One of his videos recently had thousands more likes on it than it did views. How does this happen? Not to mention he purposely used Theo's face on a promotional poster and Theo had no idea about it. Just another example of the shenanigans Brenda is getting Theo into, even though they no longer work together.
Today we're doing Rough and Rowdy, which you're doing the stream with, right?
I think so.
I've seen your face in the flyer.
So he's probably doing it.
We'll see.
I don't know. He gave me a little.
He's thinking about it.
Oh, he's like, are the numbers not right? What's going on? Are you doing the stream? No.
I don't know. I didn't make that deal. I don't know. I just got put on the flyer, I guess. I don't know.
Schaub. I saw it's Schaub. It's your face. Who are the other two faces on that flyer? Do you know the flyer I'm talking about?
It's Joey Diaz, but he got replaced. And then
Is
Jackson.
Theo's face still on the flyer?
Yeah.
Plastered all over the flyer.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know a lot about this. I will look into it though. I appreciate it.
Well, you appreciate it. We didn't. It wasn't through us.
Oh, well, it wasn't through me. That's what I'm saying. I feel like this is like we're being trafficked, bro. I don't know how this is happening, son.
I have your permission to just put your face on any flyer that I want?
Yeah, look, I'll take the pub, but I didn't do it. Now, Rough and Rowdy, and that's where you guys and these are just Amazon drivers and stuff. And
Anyway, Theo mullet good, Brenda's face.
That's so ugly, man.